The Gruesome Adventures of the Lilac Girls. 3 adult women's true stories and how they all connect to one another. Kasia Kuzmarek, a Polish and Holocaust survivor's past and guilt haunting her mind. Caroline Faraday, an American actor only wanting to help orphans and people in need. And Hedera Abhuser, a German, Polish female doctor, ever to step foot in the male-dominant camp. The book covers everyone's time between 1939 and 1959 and how they went through tremendous times. Kasia only wanted to do good and help out the underground in troubling the Polish underground in troubling times with the Germans. Because of this, she was taken along with her mother, sister, and a few friends. Heading to the Ravensbrück all-female camp by train was already a difficult journey. Her and hundreds of other women all huddled together, having one bucket to use the bathroom in. Not to mention one mother with her child that was screaming and crying. Their optimistic thoughts were quickly shut down once they arrived at the camps. At first, they were hoping, thinking that this would only last a few months, but a few months lasted for a few years. During those times, experiments were conducted and the legs were being infected. One of these surgeons was Hedera Abhuser, a doctor that was approved for assisting males at a camp. But little did she know that this would change her whole future as the years went by. Her first introduction to the camp was already miserable. She had a tiny office area with the male doctor himself, who underestimated her capability to stay in this gruesome camp, and so did she herself. She had a whole long month to decide to stay. She even stated herself that she would be gone by the next day. But she stayed in that horrid camp. She even made a friend. No, she was okay with the men. She even made a friend that soon left. But once she had her Jewish assistant, Helena Kuzmarek, to help her out, her time was a better experience. Hedera was even able to move Helena's block. Helena's block, the Jewish assistant. Hedera was even able to move Helena Kuzmarek, the Jewish assistant's block, with more food and safety, but sadly not her daughter. The time spent together was a magnificent journey. But once they got too close, the other doctors noticed, and heavily didn't enjoy it. It was easily spotted that Helena went missing directly after they started experimenting on the Jewish ladies, who were named rabbits, for the diseased, missing muscles, and hopping on one leg because they were unable to use the other. Some even died from these procedures because of the infections that the doctors purposefully gave them. The unbearable pain and support needed from the destruction led to difficult times in the camps. And even once they were brought back home. After the surgeries, Kasha was moved back into her own block. At this time, females were being randomly chosen to get eliminated and being put into a truck, leading to a place that no one knows. This is only so that the camp can get rid of the evidence. After Kasha was getting a package from her father, she was almost at a risk of a random selection until a girl named Carol gave her a safer route to the building. She also saw one of her old friends on the way back that helped her and her sister escape the camp shortly afterwards. After is when Hedera too left the camp without anyone knowing. But the trouble came quickly when she entered her mother's new living quarters with one of her neighbors. Before Hedera took her bath, the neighbor warned her that she was being hunted by the police. During her bath is when she felt safe and clean, but the police aborted that and knocked down her door. She did try committing suicide from all of the troubling and crimes that she has committed, but that was shortly stopped, and she faced 20 years in prison. In 1957, a decade after all of these events, Kasha was married to her childhood best friend, but the trauma of everything since the camp made times difficult when cherishing her 10-year-old child, Helena, named after her deceased mother. She had one too many angry moments and even punished her child by slapping her face when she wouldn't give up her mother's brushes and new paint. But the bright side is that Caroline Faraday helped start up the Ravensbrück Rabbit Committee, because even though it had been years since the camps, there was still trauma and pain in the legs. But before she even started this committee, she was known for helping out the French orphans, giving them clothing, money, supplies, anything that they would need. While helping out in the Rabbits Committee, she had an interview with the magazine company, might I say, that helped spread word about this committee. Over tens of thousands of dollars was donated, and the rabbits were able to go abroad to camp. Kasha, along with her sister Susanna, were even able to go. All of the women had treatments for their legs and even teeth all across the country. Susanna was even able to stay in America along with a few other girls, and she even found true love with the Russian. Kasha wasn't happy about it, but it wasn't her choice to make, and just wanted her sister happy. During this time, Hedera was discreetly released from prison, but only served 5 out of her 20 years. When Kasha was told this, she was furious with the good reasoning. But Caroline had a request that Kasha herself could visit Hedera in northern Germany. This is so that they can have witness proof that Hedera had been released, and to try and to remove her doctor's license by pressuring the USA to tell Germany to remove it, I guess. At first, Kasha denied because she would never look at that person that massacred her leg. day after going back to Leuven, Poland, her original hometown, she took a 1 day trip to Upper Germany. At this time, it was difficult to even get inside of it, but Caroline sent Kasia a package with supplies and papers that she needed to get across. This was successful, and Kasia easily, but terrifyingly, got across the border and confronted Hetera. At this time, she was known as a family doctor, and it was easy to get an appointment with her. The only question Kasia asked Hetera is how her mother died, so that she could finally put her mother's death past her, as it was greatly affecting her life. It was a disturbing explanation, to say the least, but she took it as a happy experience. All weights holding her down were lifted. She finally felt at peace. Part of the story and experiences were true, some of it not as much. Caroline and Hetera were real people with true events. Kasia and Susanna were fictional characters, but they were based on two real sisters in the Ravensbrück camp, named Janina and Christiana Iwanski, both Polish, of course. The details explained in this story were true events that either Martha got to experience herself or got to write from all the details explained when interviewing past survivors. Janina's and other women's legs were experimented on, of course, while in the camps. And I believe there was a picture that I showed earlier in the documentary, or slideshow. During the testimony that she had given against Hetera, she explained all the graphic details that occurred after the operations. A small quote by her states, "My right leg is in a plaster cast, up to the knee. The knee is literally bulging out of the cast. Red welts running from the knee, or rather the ankle, to the groin. My lymph nodes are enlarged. Changing the position of the leg is out of the question. The entire leg is hot. The organisms react the way it does during an infection. The headache is excruciating. For a full 2 weeks, I have a temperature of 40 degrees. Janine sadly died on January 15th, 2013, at the age of 74. But her story, and thousands of others during the Holocaust, will never be forgotten." And also keep in mind, while all the rabbits were resting, they would not have any painkillers. The doctors wouldn't change their wraps unless needed to, and most of the time it was changed. The wraps were black, full of pus. They'd even gather test tubes of this pus and use it for whatever reasoning. But the only reason that they did these tests or operations was for their own use, to save themselves from being exterminated. And this right here is Caroline Faraday's house, which is also now a historical museum up in Connecticut. It's called the Hay House, and it is known for Caroline and her mother's lilacs, the beautiful garden that they own. I would recommend visiting it if anyone's a historical buff, because from the pictures and videos that I have seen and researched, it is a beautiful house and greatly historical for Shanine's and all the polar survivors' um, experiences, I guess, because there is some pictures, I believe. But yeah.